Welcome to another episode of the Women Beyond Borders podcast. Today I'm joined by Olivia Welsh, Head of Content at Girls Who Talk Politics, a platform empowering young women to engage with politics, current affairs, and public life. In this conversation, we explore Olivia's journey, her approach to building and growing an engaged online community, the content strategy behind Girls Who Talk Politics, and the importance of creating spaces where young women feel confident to use their voices. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you so much for having me on, Margaret. I'm very excited to talk all things Girls Who Talk Politics.
To begin with, could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey into politics, communications, and Girls Who Talk Politics?
Yeah, of course. So I'm head of content at Girls Who Talk Politics. So I manage all the content that goes out on all our different platforms, including brand management, sponsorship deals, and all our events that we do. So I'm on the strategy team, which kind of leads the direction of the company. And my journey into politics started at quite a young age. I was 13 or 14 years old. I grew up in Sussex in a tiny little village. And it just shows that all politics starts locally to the area that is personal to you. So the reason I got involved with the local party at the time was because the local swimming pool, which was like a huge part of our community, and was planning to shut down due to local funding from a local council, and also the local library too. So I kind of started campaigning on those issues, and then it kind of progressed into door knocking and canvassing and getting a bit party political. And then it just grew from there. I went on to do politics A-level at school, where I learned so much and I just really fell in love with the subject. Ended up going to university and doing politics and international relations with French, which was great. And then a job in Parliament, which is my full-time job, which I absolutely love. It varies from day to day. I have a great team. So that's my current career progression into politics, and hopefully many more experiences to come.
You spent a year abroad in France during your studies in the UK. How did living and studying in another country shape your worldview, confidence, or understanding of politics and identity?
Yeah, so in the UK, when you study a language, so I did a joint honours, so my joint honours was with French. So I had to go and spend a year in a French-speaking country, and you can either split it 6 months or 6 months or do 1 year in the same place. So I did my first 6 months in an island just off Madagascar called La Réunion. It's an outer region of France, and it's super multicultural. The heritage is Chinese, Indian, and African and European, I believe. They speak French, but they also speak Creole, which is a dialect of French. So I went to study there for 6 months. It was very nerve-wracking. I had never lived abroad before, so it took a lot to go out there. I made some really amazing friends. I started French as a beginner at university. So when I got to the island, I was also the COVID year of uni to go to university. So it was 2020. It took a long time to get used to the language, as it wasn't as strong as it potentially should have been due to the non kind of in-person lessons. And I got there and I met loads of really lovely friends. There were lots of beach parties and lots of diving as part of our modules, and obviously a lot of more academic modules as well. And then I headed to Paris for my second year of my year abroad, second part of my year abroad, and did internship at the Assemblée Nationale, which for anyone who doesn't know is basically the equivalent of Parliament in France. So it's in Paris. And I worked for Député, which is an MP there. That was a huge learning curve. My French became fluent within 2 to 3 months. I knew when I started dreaming in French that it was really going in. So that was a good sign. And it was a great experience the language was difficult. The vulnerability of not being able to express yourself fully is huge, especially in a professional environment. And then the kind of political vocabulary, language, a completely new political system on top of that. It was a lot to take in every day, but it was a fantastic experience, and it really gave me so much confidence. I remember coming back from my final year at university thinking, surely this can't be as hard as what I've just experienced. And to be honest, I don't think it was. So it prepped me very, very well. But yeah, just having that confidence to be able to meet people and express yourself in a language that isn't your mother tongue is a huge thing, let alone living away from your family and friends for that period of time and learning new cultures and seeing how people live their lives hugely broadened my perspective and definitely informs my interests now in politics and in life in general.
And was there a specific moment when you realized you wanted to work in political communication and digital engagement?
I think the moment that I thought that was when I first found Girls Who Talk Politics. I think when I came across the page, so I moved to London straight after university, and a year later, I was scrolling on Instagram and someone must have shared something from the page. I think we were at maybe 5,000 or 6,000 followers then, maybe a bit more. And I saw the page and thought, this is absolutely fantastic. This is everything that I stand for in my politics. I would love to be involved in this. So I got in contact with Georgia, our head of comms on LinkedIn. So if anyone is listening to this and you're either at university or at school and you see something online that you want to get involved with, please message, because it is so important to do so. And obviously, it's hugely benefited my life by sending that message in the first place. So I had an interview with Georgia and I started off as political correspondent and then moved on to head of content. And obviously, we've grown significantly since then, but it's definitely given me this passion for political comms to see the power of it and how effective it really can be. And you see people do political comms wrong all the time. So to know that we have a fantastic team, we're very good at connecting with our community. We have a very organic community in the way that they can reach out to us. I think when brands get a bit bigger, they lose that connection, but I feel like we're really keeping it. And that's one of our core missions, is to keep that communication and advice going with people who want to go into the sector or just learn more about politics in general. So yeah, that was when it first started for me.
And for those discovering Girls Who Talk Politics for the first time, how would you describe the mission behind the platform?
So Girls Who Talk Politics is an intersectional feminist platform, and we break down UK politics basically every single day. So you get fresh content all the time, but we follow the political calendar in the way that, is there a huge debate happening in Parliament? What's happening? Is there a leadership competition coming up? So we follow everything that's fresh and new, but also topics that are hugely important to us, such as women's health. And we will always cover topics that we feel are not being covered enough as well, is really, really crucial. I would describe it as a very safe place to start your political journey. And it doesn't have to be a journey in the way that, you want to do it as a job, just more gaining the confidence to be able to form your own opinion on your politics. I think when people say, oh, what do you think about politics? It seems like a very overwhelming general subject that's quite hard to get into. But really, if you just start reading small bits of the news or our content, which we try to make as accessible and kind of broken down and also aesthetic as well, like you want it to look nice, otherwise people aren't going to click on it in the first place. And I think we really have that merger between trendy content that girls and women want to see, they interact with every day, Some people don't want to deal with kind of academic, educational content when they go on their phone. They want to switch off. They want to look at fun stuff. But politics can be fun too. And I think we are that merger in between the two, which is why the page has grown so much, because people realize that you don't have to read an article for half an hour to learn about one subject. We give you down these bite-sized pieces of information. We've started doing reels more. We have an amazing team of 7 of us. So I manage a few people in terms of getting that content out and what that looks like. And they're absolutely fantastic in the way that they design it. Everything that goes through the page goes to at least 3 or 4 team members, so that we're making sure we're double checking if there's a key word, political terminology. We're breaking that down so that you come away from our posts feeling like, next time I'm at brunch with the girls, or I'm at the pub, or I'm at a barbecue, or I'm around a table with my family at Christmas and something political comes up, you can say, I think this. And the reason why I think this is because of the information that I've seen, I've been given, and this is how I form my opinion. And we have this huge confidence gap between men and women, and the ability to be able to do that in the first place. And that is where our real mission stems from in Girls Who Talk Politics.
And why do you think so many young women feel disconnected from politics?
Great question. I think there's a few things. I think there's a huge amount of misogyny deep rooted within society. And social media performs as this platform for people to put stuff on there and views on there that they probably wouldn't say in real life, which causes this vacuum of misogyny and hatred. And actually, we've experienced it a lot on the page. I think one of the most amazing things about Girls Who Talk Politics is we're an extremely supportive team. So because we have a huge reach, I think last month we reached 8 million users. That's a huge amount of people that we're connecting with, but it also opens us up to a huge amount of hate, especially as a team of women as well. We recently blew up on TikTok about it was a TikTok on men's football, the difference between men and women's football. And the comments on that particular video were quite shocking. And I think if there was only one of us behind the account, it would almost be off-putting. It would almost stop our mission. So having that team and community feel is so important for us to be able to connect and continue what we're doing. The comments were kind of stemmed from get back to the kitchen, you know nothing about football. And I have never heard someone say that to me, but there are views out there that are very clear on social media. It puts women off having an opinion on social media. In terms of other kind of methods of violence against women, you've got kind of grok technology that are undressing women online. It's a very hostile place for women a lot of the time. And I think for us to be that safe place is really, really important. The other thing is, I guess, more from the root is education in general. In the UK specifically, our education system is not overtly political in the way that we might have a kind of like civil relations type class, but it won't be a politics class unless you choose to pick it for A-level. So you're getting to the point where, one of the new government proposals is voting under 16. So you could have people in year 11 who are being given the right to vote, but have never been taught about how a political party works, the confidence of having your own opinion, as basic as that, what's a local council? Just basic things are not being taught. And that makes it really, really difficult, especially people, who haven't grown up speaking about politics at home. How are you ever meant to know about politics in the first place if you've never had access to it? And if you've never had access to the education, how do you have access to the sector itself if you potentially want to work in it? I mean, do people know that they want to work in it? So that's another thing with our events, is opening up these institutions to young people and young women to ensure that they know it is a place for them and they absolutely could have a job here if they wanted to, and they can come and say their opinion and ask our panelists questions. And that element of accessibility is very, very important. So there are specific demographics in our population who will not have the privilege of that political education. And I think it's something that we actually really need to look at within our schooling system as well.
Since joining the team last year in Girl Who Talk Politics, you've helped grow the platform from around 5,000 or 6,000, as you mentioned, to over 70,000 across social media. What do you think made the content resonate so strongly?
I think the content has reached a kind of specific audience, a mix, to be honest. If we could split our community into two, we've got the people who are already politically engaged. They just want to know more and they want to keep up to date, which is absolutely fantastic. But then we've got the other half of our community are people who might have said once, I'm not political. I don't do politics, and have seen our content and thought, this is quite cool. I want to be involved in this. I want to see what this page is. I want to see what they post, because at the end of the day, our team, we are regular young girls in our 20s and 30s who also want to keep up with the news, but understand that it may not be a priority for everybody every day. You might not have time. Most people have a 9 to 5, which means that, to go through all the newspapers and all the traditional forms of media is just not possible. And our whole ethos is meet people where they are. If they are scrolling on social media because they're trying to relax in the evenings, or they pick up their phone first thing in the morning, they will go on social media, and we want to be able to educate them on that platform. It might be all very well and good, setting up a newspaper or whatever, but we've seen statistically that young people get the majority of their news on Instagram and TikTok. So why wouldn't we meet them there? If we can make an impact and make them believe that, politics is for them. Everything in our lives is political, from who collects your bins to your education to your healthcare. It is all political. So it's very, very important to focus on the reasons, why politics is so important in the first place.
So you mentioned sharing different news and updates, and I know you have a few series when it comes to your content, but was there a particular piece of content or campaign that became a turning point for growth?
So our main post that went viral was last summer, and it was Girls Who Read Politics. And funnily enough, our now team member, but she wasn't then, contacted me to say, I'd love to do work experience with you. And we gave her the work experience and suddenly realized she was absolutely incredible at designing and everything under the sun, editing. She's currently at university, and she designed the Girls Who Read post, and we posted it, and I think it's got 64,000 likes, and it just hit international markets that we had never hit before. And the post just kept growing and kept growing, and I think we gained about 10,000 followers from that one post. So they are very, very popular. I would say to anyone who wants to go into political content creation to find what works well with your community, you will realize very, very quickly who engages with what type of content. And when you find one kind of type of content, keep posting it, because it keeps performing well. If you look at our page, every Girls Who Read we do does significantly better than other posts. So there's clearly a market for it. And it's something that we would love to do events kind of in the future too. And then we kind of changed that to Girls Who Listen as well, or Girls Who Read Substack articles, and you can just slightly change it so it's different content. But everyone's very engaged with it. I think it shows that there are a lot of people who read political type of literature as well, which is really nice. And the comments are always really interesting. There's a bit of debate going on. So they are definitely super popular. The other popular ones are a bit of background on the team ourselves. I think for ages we were very faceless, so people didn't know who was behind the page. But actually, I did a one on, here's how you get a job straight out of university, and it was a carousel and you swipe through, and that did really well. And actually we received loads of messages asking questions about how I got certain types of work experience. And so I hope that was useful to people, to show that if you are at university right now or at school, I think the future can feel incredibly daunting, especially when everyone's telling you the job market's really hard for graduates. You go to university, have a great time, and then suddenly you come out with a job. And I know that I was extremely privileged to get a job as soon as I came out of university. But I think being able to know the hacks of how to get the work experience and what types of messages to send people on LinkedIn is incredibly valuable. And we do a lot of that through workshops as well. So if anybody is ever interested in that, I can do more content for you on that. But yeah, I think learn what your audience likes and keep giving it to them. There's nothing wrong with changing content slightly and putting it out again.
And what do you think? What makes people stop scrolling and actually engage with political content today?
I mean, we're exploring a lot of strategy right now. It's quite interesting. I've never had access to like a public Instagram account before, and the insights that you get are fascinating in terms of your gender split. Like sometimes, well, normally all of our posts are like 99% women as an audience, and then sometimes we'll hit like a 50% male kind of female audience, which is crazy. It really depends on the content. And actually, if it's about certain political parties, it seems to hit more of a male audience, which is quite interesting. But we do a lot of, we try to do kind of hooks to get people in the first place. We do a mixture of reels and carousels, and we also do different content on all of our platforms. We kind of started TikTok and realized that you can't just post your Instagram content on TikTok. It doesn't translate the same. So I think we're still getting there with trying different types of strategies. But it is very, very interesting as someone who has kind of grown up online. I think we're the generation where we kind of got social media when we were like 12 or 13, and we know how it all works. But when you're actually the one posting on it and like showing your face on the internet, it can be nerve-wracking sometimes and trying to figure out what's going to go down well with an audience and also what's helpful. Like, what do people want to see? So we regularly ask that on stories and try and provide as much as possible. But yeah.
Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the confidence gap between men and women. How do you think women can navigate leadership spaces without feeling pressured to fit into traditionally masculine models of authority?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic to talk about. And I think a lot of women feel that pressure to be, super confident and not worry about what anybody thinks. And actually, I feel like I resonate with girls who talk politics so much because I'm so early on in my career. I'm 2 years in. And did I absolutely walk into rooms at the start and think, I have no idea how to do this? What is networking? How do I start a conversation with a random person? No one teaches you this stuff. You're just like thrown in a room and it's like, go and talk to people. And I would say I'm quite a people person in general, but there's something about being the youngest woman in the room most of the time and navigating a space. And I think I'm very lucky in the way that my work is quite welcoming from that point of view in social spaces. But then I've also been to professional events where it is harder to work the room. And strangely enough, this is a personal experience, but I do find it harder to network with men. And I have heard other women say the same thing. So I think it is daunting. And I think you don't need to fit into male stereotypes of leadership whatsoever. If we're talking about on a social level, on a networking level, to be able to walk into a room, be completely yourself, go up to somebody, pick the friendliest person in the room, by the way. There's no point going up to someone who looks unfriendly and unapproachable. You can tell by body language a lot of the time as well. If somebody's body is like slightly more open, they're more ready for conversation. So to be able to go up to them and say, "Hi, I'm Olivia, lovely to meet you," shake their hand. "How are you today?" Then you start a conversation. That initial bit is most possibly the scariest bit of all of it, because once you said hi, they're normally so grateful that you've said hi because it means that they don't have to do it to you. So you've done them a favor, and then you're asking them how they are, and they'll respond, and they'll probably ask you how you are. So then you can respond. And then, I talk to students all the time who say, "Okay, but what do I talk about next?" Like the biggest fear is to run out of something to talk about, and it's a bit awkward. But there's so much, like you can actually go with a starter pack of questions for each person in the room. You can ask the same questions to different people and it works perfectly fine. So you can say, "Oh, where do you work?" Great. What's your role? And then you say, "Oh, so what does your day-to-day look like?" Because you're learning more about the company. If you're a student, even if you're in a job and you fancy another job, just learning about all the roles out there is so fascinating. And then after that, the conversation will just keep flowing. They'll say something that you want to learn more about. They might ask you a question, hopefully. And that's kind of how the networking works on a social level. In terms of leadership itself, female leaders are, obviously, I'm hugely generalizing, but I would say that men and women lead in quite different ways. And actually, statistically, business success rates wise, female leadership is a whole lot more successful than male leadership. So I don't think you can generalize on that one, but my one piece of advice would be to be yourself. And also, if you're in a professional environment where you feel like potentially they are not treating you with respect because of your age, potentially, stick up for yourself as well. You know, ask for a pay rise, ask for a review. I think it's super important, and it's difficult when you are the youngest in the room. But the leadership is also something you learn on the job as well.
Yeah, I want to go back to networking part, and I want to say, um, in the room, most of the
Mm.
people are there because of networking. So everyone is equally stressed and worried about how to approach other people. And what really helped me was to represent not only myself, but a platform like Women Beyond Borders. It made me more confident about the things I do, about the work I do.
At the end of the day, we're all humans in a room. We're probably feeling like everybody is looking at us thinking, "What are they doing in the room?" But actually, no one cares. We're all main characters in our own
Yes,
lives. And
exactly.
you could, I've had conversations with people that are quite hard work before to the point where I think that's fine. You're not in a networking mood. And people say, "How do I end a conversation?" Because you could be talking to someone and you're like, "Oh, well, we don't actually have much more to kind of touch base on anymore." Um, as particularly happens with men, actually, weirdly enough. But then you just say, "Well, it was so lovely to meet you," and you just say, you just leave and you go to the next person. I mean, when there are so many people to meet in a room, like you should be working a room. And also it's just practice, 100%. Like confidence, fake it till you make it is probably my biggest life motto, I think. If you're feeling super nervous, ask your 4 questions that you've pre-prepared. And if it doesn't go any further, then you just try the next time. And every time you try, you'll get so much better. And you'll eventually leave a room and be like, "Wow, I'm actually quite good at networking now." You will have that reflection. So yeah, it is fun navigating professional spaces when you've just left university. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, they didn't really teach you networking in uni. Since the local elections in the UK happened, the female participation and representation in politics dramatically declined. Why do you think is that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's something that we've been kind of navigating as a page as well. Actually, 37% of the candidates running in the local elections as local candidates were women, which is obviously significantly lower than it should be. We work quite closely with an organisation called Elect Her, who focuses on building confidence within individuals to run as candidates. And it's really nerve-wracking. I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to put yourself forward for public office, to have your face all over political literature, to be able to door knock, to be able to debate publicly. It's a huge thing. It also takes up a huge part of your life. And I have some really close friends who ran as local councillors and actually lost their seats. And it's really upsetting to see that happening. Obviously, that's politics. You know, the people have the power. If they don't vote you in, you don't get to keep your seat. But it's hard because you think about these candidates who have had their seats for potentially 10 years plus. And now, because of more national politics, it has affected them in a negative way. That's not because of their role and the way that they've performed. It's because of much bigger issues that's completely out of their control. And I think to have the confidence as a woman to run in the first place is a huge thing, let alone when you've been defeated for reasons that were out of your control. And I think the fear that we have over, thousands and thousands of candidates who may have lost their seats in the most recent locals, we can only hope that those women return back, because we've had some very, very talented councillors who have lost their seats. To have 37% run in the first place, that's before they've even won or lost their seat, is incredibly low. In terms of female representation in general, in the last general election in 2024, we had the highest intake of female MPs, which is obviously absolutely fantastic. So that was the most recent Labour government. But in general, we have to do a lot of work as women ourselves. There's an element of that. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it is an element of saying to your friend, you'd be really good at that. You would be really good at that. And women need that because of that confidence gap. Whereas men just say, I'll just give it a go. They have more confidence. So this is your sign. If you know somebody who you think will be really good in political office, and women just need that nudge towards it, that slight bit of confidence. And Elect Her do some really, really powerful work on this. They run workshops nationally, and you should definitely check them out if you haven't done already. But if you do know anyone, this is your sign to say to your friends or anybody that you meet. I say it quite regularly to people. I say, have you ever thought about doing this? Because you'd be so good, and their face kind of lights up, and then they suddenly think, wait, I actually could do this, even though they've never even thought about it as a possibility. And we need more young women and girls to think that it is absolutely within their reach to be able to run in political office.
I agree. Olivia, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your journey, insights, and experiences with us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might find it valuable. You can also follow Girls Who Talk Politics to learn more about their work and connect with their growing community on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.